Small businesses need to manage their cash if they are to succeed. And forecasting this cash can be a challenge without a simple tool to break it down. And that's why I created a cash flow analysis, which allows small business owners to easily forecast what their cash will look like in the next few months. So let me share with you the cash flow analysis that I prepared. So here we are, cash flow analysis from January to December 2024. We have the main line items. We have income, which is cash inflow, and I've set up 2 revenue streams. We have the next major line item is expenses, which is cash outflow, and typical expenses in here, such as payroll, insurance, and rent, etc. The next line item is other changes, and that represents cash outflow. So these are changes in the balance sheet. So change in the balance sheet, for example, would include loan repayments, director's drawdown. The next major line item is other changes and cash inflow. So these are changes in the balance sheet, but positive changes. So money coming in from a loan, for example, monies received from an investment. They would be typical examples. And here at the bottom, you have your net cash flow. So that is formula driven, and it represents all the figures that are inserted above. Now, to start any cash flow analysis, you need the balance sheet figure for bank or cash at the start. So we're going to take 10,000 as being the balance in the bank at the 1st of January 2024. So let's put 10,000 in here. Okay, now we're going to use a few examples up here. So let's take this as being a restaurant. So a restaurant and a bar. So we're going to have bar sales and we're going to have restaurant sales. So let's put in some bar sales. So let's just say 5,000 the month of January, and let's say restaurant sales for 12,000. Okay. Now, just going to format this here, bring it in a bit like this. Now, okay, let's make it a bit clearer there. Now we're going to say the cost of goods, services sold. So it's typically about a third. Okay, so that's if we're running things correctly. So we're going to take around just a third. Let's just say we put in as 5,000. Okay, the cost of the goods sold, and the services. Okay. And in this example, it's going to be the cost of the goods because we have payroll down here, and payroll is going to be, let's put in 550. And let's put in 1,000 in here. Okay, insurance. Now, insurance is a fixed cost. So insurance is going to be the same every single month. So we're going to put in 200 here. And let's say, for argument's sake, our rent is 1,500 a month. Maybe quite conservative, but less wrong with it. Now, our utilities will fluctuate, obviously, depending on how much electricity we use every month. So we're going to start by saying 300, okay? So our starting position is, so far, it's total cash from revenue 17,000, and we've total operating expenses of 13.5. So it's looking good at the moment. It's looking positive. Now, we need to look at our balance sheet, okay? So when we look at our balance sheet, we look at any repayments of loans that have taken place between the end of the financial year and the end of January. So in this example, I'm going to presume that the end of the financial year was the 31st of December 2023. So between the 31st of December 2023 and the 31st of January 2024 was really loan repayments. So we're going to assume 700 a month for a loan repayment, okay? And we're going to assume that there was no director's drawdown, so the directors took zero from the business. And cash received from a loan. Now, we're going to presume that this loan was drawn down prior to now, so we're going to leave that at zero. And also, we're going to say cash from investment. We're going to say here that the director invested 10,000 of their own cash into the business. Okay, so let's plug that in there. Now, what's happening here now is that it's taking all the formula here is taking the positive, it's taking less the expenses, less the 700 and plus the 10. Now we have net cash flows for the month of January of 12,800. Okay. Now the ending balance, and the ending balance is formula driven as well. And the ending balance takes in what the opening balance was, okay, plus the positive or negative cash flow for January. So our ending balance now is 22,800, okay? Now, let's go ahead and complete February. Let's just say that, you know, things got a bit quieter in February. So our bar sales dropped to 4,000 and our restaurant sales dropped accordingly, okay? Going to enter that in there now. I'm just going to formulate these here. One of these just should have done when I was just sticking zeros there. Okay, so now keeping in line with the ratio that we applied in January, I'm going to take about a third of the revenue as being the cost of sales. So let's take a third. So we're going to just say about 4,300. Okay, and our payroll is going to go down a bit in February because of the fact that our sales have dropped as well, and our taxes, we're going to keep them at 900. Okay, our insurance doesn't change, it's a fixed cost. Our rent doesn't change, it's a fixed cost, and our utilities, we're going to say they remain the same amount of electricity used. Okay, loan payments again won't change because usually a loan repayment schedule is set up for a constant payment every month. And cash received from loan, we're going to say 0 again because it was received prior to the start of January. And cash from investment, 0, because we have received nothing from the directors or any other investor into the business. Now what it's looking like is 1,600. Okay, so 1,600 is your positive cash inflow. Okay, it's quite different in January, and just from looking from January straight away, we know that one of the directors invested 10,000, so that brought it up substantially. So what we're going to do here is we need to put two formulas in here. The first one is we need to put in the beginning. So the beginning cash balance is the closing cash balance of the previous month. So we're just going to click that in there. Okay. Now, what we need to do is we need to bring this formula to here because that's now adding up our total cash at the end of February. Okay. That total cash at the end of February becomes your opening cash in March and so on. And that's the way the cash flow will move. I'm just going to change here to find out. That's a bit better. Okay. So now March, we all know March picks up for business, especially with regards to tourism, usually from St. Patrick's Day. So we're going to bring up the revenues a bit higher. So we're going to say in March we had 7,000 now for bar sales, and we're going to bring up to 14,000 restaurant sales, okay, to reflect the increased activity for March. And we're going to say again, we're going to say a third is the cost of sales. And this time we're going to say payroll is, let's bring it up to 6,200, okay? And the taxes, let's say 1,500. And insurance doesn't change. Rent, same. Utilities. Okay, we know these remain the same, so just copy those in. And again, we're saying, okay, no cash from loan, no cash received from any of the directors. And now we're in a positive cash flow of 3,600. And we bring our formula across, and our formula represents the net cash flows from March plus the opening balance. Now we have 28,000 in cash reserve. Okay, so we're going to keep going with this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep going with it quite quickly until we get to December. So I'm going to start popping in all the revenues. Okay, so let's say April, things will increase from March because we're going into the summer period. So let's say 10, Down to 0, 10, and 12, and 12, and let's bring this up to 14. And usually our tour season lasts up until October, so maybe we might change that to 13, 12. Usually there's a drop then in November. So let's bring that drop down to 6. Okay, and then we have December again. It can be a very busy month. Okay, now let's put in the restaurant. So the restaurant is going to have the same increase as the bar in and about. And then we have 17. And we have 20. And then we have, let's stay in line with the bar, 20. We have 14. And then put that in there. And that down to 22. And we have 13. So we're going to bring that down to 20. And maybe 19. Maybe better for that. 13, 12, 21. Okay, 21. Then we have 20. 20. We have 6. So down to 15. And then we have 15. So we're going to bring that down to so we're saying over here that 14 is 22. Let's bring that to 23. Okay. So that's what our sales look like for the 12 months. Now, I'm going to put another formula in here, and I'm going to say the cost of goods is 30%. 35%. We're going to allow 35%. 35%. So I'm going to put a formula in here. Drag this formula across, just to make it easy for ourselves. Okay. So that's the industry average. That's where 35% is coming from. Usually, if we operate a restaurant or a bar, we would use an industry average of 35% of the cost of the goods bought for the restaurant, or the cost of the drinks bought for the bar. So it's an industry average. We'd like to stay within that industry average, but you know, it's something for yourself as a small business owner to consider based on your own records in the past. Are you meeting the 35%, or is it higher? Okay. So what we're going to do here is we're going to assume that this is 40, a bit high. Again, that should represent a 30, 35 to, sorry, now just enter this here. Multiply by 0.4. It's there. So we're just going to drag that across. This is just to save some time. And the payroll taxes. Okay, so the payroll taxes, we're just going to plug these in here now. Payroll taxes don't necessarily follow a ratio because of all different factors. So we're going to just put in 2 here, 3, 4, and 3.5, and 3, and let's go down to 1.9. Now we're going to put in 4.5, I think we do, or 4.250. Okay. Now our insurance, we know, remains the same, so we just drag that across, and so does our rent. We assume that there has been no renegotiation of a lease or so on. And utilities. Now utilities, we're going to increase that for the summer months. Even though we have longer hours of brightness, we still have more activity in the restaurant. So you'd imagine that slightly more power will be used. So we're just going to keep it 400. Again, it might be just too conservative, but we may have overestimated in our other areas. Now, so the loan repayments, they're going to remain the same. Okay, so, and we're going to assume then for the rest that no director's drawdown, no cash received from a loan, and no other investment received from cash. And we can see here, starting with January, we can see, okay, that's where our cash position lies. Okay, now you can see in some areas, for example, in November, the cash is quite low. Okay, so you €50 in cash from that particular month. Okay, and other months in the summer are quite high. Okay, and we'd expect that in the industry. So before we make our conclusion, let's make sure that we do our formulas, okay, and complete our formulas. Okay, so that's that. So we're just going to drag this across. Okay, now what happens as a consequence of dragging a formula across? Okay, it brings in, because it's a formula driven, it brings in your ending balance as your opening balance and so on. You can see there the ending balance in April is the opening balance in May, ending balance in June, etc. is the opening balance in July. Now, what it's saying in December is we have a closing balance of 44,400. 44,400, okay? Now, that is, it's quite healthy balance, okay? There is no negative in there, so there's no month that the business is in the red, which is very good, okay? So I would say that this business is viable, okay? And it's supported by it's supported by its cash reserves. And I would say that you know, that obviously these figures are based on past financials, and that's very important, that we just don't, you know, pluck numbers out of the sky, that, you know, our revenues are based, if we have had a trading year the year before, our revenues are based on that, okay, that we're not just adding on like 50% here and there. That won't work, and that won't guide you in the right direction. So if you'd like to know more about how to get a copy of this spreadsheet, please get in contact.